electronic digital meeting via Zoom. Will the clerk please call the roll? Is the clerk on? Wait a minute. I don't see our clerk on here yet. I guess we need to wait a moment. Chuck, can you tell me if Sharon is having a technical problem?
Yeah, I'm checking right on now with her, Mayor.
Thank you.
You signed in? Did you sign in for me again? We just have to keep record of everybody who's at the meeting.
Mark, did you try again?
Brian, can you hear me now?
Yes. Super.
No, go ahead. Oh.
Chuck, I have some people reaching in to me telling me they're trying to watch it on YouTube and they can't see it. Are you not on yet, maybe?
The YouTube link is live. I have it on my other monitor. It's working.
You can see it? What are you seeing when you look at it?
I'll click on it right now. I'm seeing us about 6 seconds ago. I'm seeing myself take a sip of my tea, which I just did about 6 seconds ago.
Yeah, I've got two people telling me they can't see it. They went to the website and tried to link through the link on the main page. Is there something else they should be doing?
Are they on the City of Sylvania YouTube page?
I don't know.
A lot of the kids went to the.
I can email a direct link if somebody wants one.
A lot of their kids went to parochial high school.
Have it if we need it.
The city council meeting will begin shortly. I don't know, Chuck maybe can't hear us.
We are still waiting for the clerk of council to be able to join in with us. I really don't want to start the meeting without her on the Zoom meeting. So we are waiting for that technical issue. She was at the committee meeting and hopefully she can sign back on here shortly.
I wonder if she's still on the other meeting.
He did a couple. And this is YouTube, your city official.
She was aware that there were two different Zoom meetings. She sent it all to us.
I can also see the YouTube from this meeting.
Actually, it's an interactive camera.
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, they can see us.
I guess they're listening. Oh, they probably have me on mute.
Yeah, they can see it.
My husband has me on mute too.
Yeah, we don't. No, we are not on mute. I don't see the mute sign. No, there may not be a microphone.
No, it's working something.
Okay.
I mean, nobody answered the question.
please call the roll.
Mrs. Capellini,
Here.
Mr. Fry,
Here.
Mr. Hanem,
Here.
Mr. McCann,
Here.
Mr. Richardson,
Here.
Miss Stowe,
Here.
Mrs. Westfall.
Here.
All 7 members of City Council are present. Therefore, a quorum does exist. I can see that we have some guests in City Council chambers, and I know that we have people watching on YouTube as well. I welcome all of you to our meeting. We have a set agenda for the meeting, and the first thing is our Pledge of Allegiance, and I invite all of you to join us for our pledge. This meeting led by Mr. Richardson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is our first meeting of the new year, our first meeting to use the new meeting criteria and script based on the approval by the voters of our charter change. The clerk has sent that out to all of you. It's in your council packets. I encourage us to adapt to that. We no longer need to have 2 readings, 2 motions for each item on the agenda, but we still need to have a supermajority of 5 council members vote for anything to pass it on a single night. If there are not 5 votes in the affirmative, it will be brought back for a second and a third time until 5 votes are there, or it passes 3 times with 4 votes. We are at agenda item 3, which is additions to the agenda, and I do have a few things to add to the agenda. As agenda item 4A, we will have election of City Council President. You are all received a copy of Mrs. Westfall's letter resigning from the President of Council position in your council packets, and that necessitates a council president election during this off year for elections. It is not an organizational meeting. It will just be a new council president election, and I understand that there has been some discussion amongst you about committee assignments. We can talk about that a little later. Also would like to add agenda item 16. This will be a reminder and update from Mr. Sanford about the Downtown Economic Development Plan review taking place this Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. As the final agenda item, whatever number that turns out to be, I am requesting an executive session to discuss litigation. This has nothing to do with the special use permit you are addressing this evening. This is a separate issue of existing litigation that we want to bring you up to date on. So whatever that turns out to be, it will be the final executive session. Mrs. Westfall.
Nothing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other members of City Council. Hearing none. Mr. Sanford, I believe you're covered now. Mr. Schroyer, I see you're on here. Do you have any items?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Chief Snore, I believe you're in council chambers. Any issues?
The room is on mute right now.
I see that. He's coming up. He can shake his head for me. That's okay. Nope. Okay. And Mr. Aller, you are on via Zoom from your office. Any items?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
And Mrs. Brining? Nothing. All right. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for this evening's meeting as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and the agenda for tonight is set. The first item on the agenda, we have approval of the regular meeting minutes from our last meeting on December 21st. Mrs. Westfall should move approval of those as she was in the president's chair for that meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move approval for the Sylvania City Council meeting minutes for the meeting held on December 21st, 2020 as submitted.
Second.
And moving and seconded to approve the meeting minutes as submitted from December 21st. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and those meeting minutes are approved. We'll now move on to agenda item 4A, which was added to elect a new council president. What we have done in the past is for the current president to put in the record whatever she desires as a part of her resignation, and then we'll move from there. Mrs. Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To my fellow members of Sylvania City Council, to the mayor and all members of city administration, I did submit my formal letter of resignation as president of Sylvania City Council effective this evening, Monday, January 4th, 2020. Please know that I do plan to continue serving as an active member of Sylvania City Council. It has been truly my honor and privilege to serve as president of Sylvania City Council. Thank you, members of City Council, the mayor, and administration, for your support and vote of confidence during my nearly 9-year tenure as president. Please know that I remain committed to the continued growth and success of the city and will do all that I can to contribute to a brighter future for all who reside here. Thank you.
Mrs. Westfall, I personally thank you for your service. I have racked my memory going back into the 80s, and you are the longest serving council president that I have been associated with while on city council. There have been many city council presidents during my tenure on city council and as mayor, none approach your tenure, and you have done a wonderful job and contributed a great deal to the city of Sylvania. So thank you for your service.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to know that there's something that I did that the other presidents didn't. Served longer.
Well, they all did a wonderful job, and you did the job very well also. With that, are there any nominations or discussion for a new council president?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to nominate Mark Fry as president of Sylvania City Council.
Second. I'd like to second that as well.
Seconded for Mr. Fry to be our new council president. If there's no further, let's act on that motion. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and congratulations, Mr. Fry.
Congratulations, Mr. Fry.
I just want to also, Mr. Mayor, if I might, I will also want to extend my gratitude to all members of council in this regard for the honor, and want to tell Mrs. Westfall that she's not completely off the hook. I'll probably lean on her vast experience in being president of council, and look forward to working with all council members as we continue to move the city forward. So thank you very much.
If we were together in council chambers, you would need to exchange seats because the city charter calls for the president of council to sit to the mayor's right. The law director would be sitting to the left. However, in this case, all you need to do probably is to work with the council clerk to update the list of committees. That would seem appropriate. I know you've been in contact with members of city council, and it's my understanding for this evening, you and Mrs. Westfall are changing committee chairmanships, at least for this evening.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. If there are other members of council while I've had discussions that want to change committee assignments, please let me know, and we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll just Mrs. Westfall and I will swap streets, safety and finance chairs, and we'll just continue to move forward. So otherwise, that's pretty much it.
All right, and the next time we meet in City Council chambers live, you will be sitting to the mayor's right. Thank you. All right, I'm ready to move on. If council is to published agenda item 5, which is a COVID-19 update. This is to confirm that we continue to meet electronically as permitted by state law and as recommended by the Lucas County Health Commissioner to avoid gatherings of 10 or more people in a single room. Looks like we're approaching that in city council chambers with people attending the meeting there and watching it on our classroom smart board, the same as is in every classroom in the Sylvania School District. I will report to you that our city buildings remain locked, but open by appointment to all citizens and people with business to conduct with the city. I've received no complaints as to that causing any problem. We have left our additional mailboxes outside for people to deposit their utility bills or their tax payments or the like. It seems to be running smoothly. And the city has been quite fortunate with their employees, and we should all knock on wood with that one, not to have too many cases shutting down city operations. All city services are being provided. Nothing is curtailed. Our police department has had a couple of people that were in isolation for a while, but far fewer than the fire department. The fire department was having a good deal of trouble. As you know, Fire Chief Ram had a COVID himself, but I believe is recovered. The police have registered a complaint to me. I can't do anything about it, but a complaint that I will convey on to the other mayors and to the health commissioners. And we did discuss it last week, that the state of Ohio has lowered the police department employees of all police in Ohio away from the 1A priority to something in 2. And they are quite concerned about it. The day before it happened, Police Captain Miller told me about 3 police calls where they, as the police always do, had to apply first aid, and they are in contact with people. There's no doubt about it. And they tell me they're often on the scene before the fire department gets there. And that's because our police officers are on patrol. They're already in their vehicles. The fire department takes a little bit longer to get there. And I am conveying that logic, that information to our health commissioner. And if given the opportunity, I will convey it on to Governor DeWine as well. But so far, Chief Sonora, I know you're in the room. You don't need to get on microphone to say it. Your department is still on regular schedule with regular manning, and that's good news. Mr. Aller, any additional comments you'd like to make? You're our chief of COVID responsibilities.
Not much to add, Mr. Mayor. I think the building closures are going fine. If people call and need to speak with somebody, we are letting them in the building and getting that accommodated. We were fortunate enough to that we had only had one city employee that had tested positive themselves up until last week, and our numbers, we have had a few employees that have tested positive. So it is making its way into our building. We're still in very good shape as far as being able to provide services. Nothing of concern there, but it is creeping everywhere, and it's taken quite a long time, but it is now in the city staff. So
I am in information loop with Lucas County and with the health commissioner concerning the distribution of vaccines. And I'm serving on Project V in Lucas County, Project Vaccine, to try and encourage more people to get the vaccine. Unfortunately, at the moment, the problem is not finding people who want the vaccine, it's finding enough vaccine to administer it. And hopefully that will be corrected as soon as possible. I have no information that you haven't already heard in the media about the priorities. As they currently stand, they are first responders, which means firefighters. Teachers and school employees are going to be included, and they are working on other frontline service providers as well. If that changes and I don't see it reflected in the press, I will get the information to you. There are no priorities that I'm aware of distributed. I did directly question the health commissioner and ask him, how will people in Sylvania know where and when they can get their vaccine? And he said it will be publicized, and he anticipates appointments being made for drive-through vaccine in our community when it's available. And I can't tell you that as above age 65, I look forward to that. I am in one of the priorities, but certainly haven't received the vaccine and have no idea when I might. But hopefully we'll all have it in a few months and we can go back to a more normal lifestyle. Any questions for city staff from council members about current COVID-19 response? Thank you. Let's move on to agenda item 6, which is continued discussion on the public hearing for special use permit 1, 2020. Mr. Hainum, this is something that you have probably want to talk about, but I felt in consultation with both the outgoing and the incoming presidents of council that I would allow a couple of people on both sides who might have new information to make a few comments at some point before council's deliberations. I know that a public hearing was already held. Prior to that, there was 30 days notice given of a legal notice in the local newspaper. All the legal requirements have been met, and council could have voted on it that evening back on December 21st. Council chose to delay action until July 4th so that they could do more investigation, which I understand 6 of you did go to Lima to one of this company's installations and review it, as members of the administration had done prior. But I want to assure members of the public and city council that both the letter of the law for public notice and the spirit of the law have been met. There's been a lot of media coverage, both in the printed press and in the television stations, and a great deal of exchange on social media. Council has its choice whether to proceed this evening or to continue to study the issue. The city laws say that you must take action within a reasonable amount of time. With that, I'm not sure whether we're ready, but I do have a few speakers to speak. I see one is online right now. We will do it at the same as was done at the public hearing. This is a city resident who did not have a chance to speak, who asked to speak. His name is John Curtos. John, I see you there. You're unmuted. You have 1 to 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate it, and I will be brief. I'm a Sylvania resident here on Vicksburg Drive. My wife and I also had the opportunity to go down to Lima to visit the facility at Midwest. They gave us a tour, and we were able to utilize the facilities. Felt very comfortable, very safe when my wife and I were walking in. There were actually several police officers that were walking out from utilizing the facility. I think this would be a very good business venture for the city, for the community, and even though I will use the facility, if I had any fears, concerns, or anything about the use of the facility, I wouldn't go. And I have absolutely zero. My wife and I and our children are residents here. My parents are residents here. We all live within a mile of the facility. So I think it's a great thing. Thank you very much.
We appreciate you taking the time to make those comments. At the moment, I don't have anyone else that's requested to speak for positive, for the issue. We do have a gentleman online, is being identified as Zoom user Mohammed Juma, who is a township resident, not a city resident, who would like to have an opportunity to speak. There you go. You're unmuted.
Hi. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
And apologies. Can you see me okay as well, or?
You're a little dark, but we can see.
Oh, I'm sitting in my car. I came actually to the location here, so you
got a little brighter as you got closer to the screen.
Okay, good. So thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you this evening. So we became aware of this issue on the 20th of December. We live right behind the location, behind the old Andersons. And I am completely opposed to the special permit. And for a full disclosure, I'm not opposed to the business coming to Sylvania. I think it's a good idea to bring it, but to a different location. I think this location is actually really close to residential areas. It's very close, really close to a medical clinic where patients are walking in and out, to the skilled nursing facility right behind it, to Kingston, where many of my patients reside for a period of time. To the high school, very importantly, and to a public library, and across the street from a very busy shopping plaza. I don't want to take too much time, and I'm pretty sure you heard a lot of the arguments previously, but I wanted to point out a few things. Most of those indoor ranges are by design outside of urban and residential areas for a reason. If you look around the country, they typically are not in busy residential locations or residential areas. And the environmental concerns are real. I think there's a concern about lead and arsenic poisoning, and that's a real concern. We have sent several emails to the city council about the issue with value depreciation of the homes around the location. And if you look it up online, the value depreciation is in the range of 4%. And the responses, to be quite honest, have been not very satisfying in terms of, explaining this, where the science came from. But we keep hearing from the city council that there's no science behind it. But, what I would invite the city council to do is to actually bring an independent consultant, and look into this issue, because I think the value depreciation is actually real.
We
the last thing I wanted
your
to bring
presentation.
Okay. Do you mind if I bring up one more issue?
You've done a good synopsis of the arguments that we have heard from many residents, and I'd like to say that you are an attorney that was speaking for a city resident that lives immediately behind the facility. Is that correct?
No, I am the city resident who lives behind the facility. So
you are the resident. Okay.
I'm a physician. I live right behind the facility in Oak Creek.
Can you give me your address for the record?
Yes, it's 4344 Dovewood Lane.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for participating.
I just wanted to point out.
Okay. At the moment, I have no other speakers that requested to speak or have new information. Again, the public hearing was held 2 weeks ago, and we wanted to give at least one person on each side to summarize the arguments. I didn't really hear anything new. But with that, Mr. Hanum or Mr. Fry, I think I'm going to surrender the discussion to one of you. Looks like Mr. Hanum.
Yeah, I'll be happy to take this up. There are a couple things that I think are worth noting. One, and there's confusion. There's been confusion among some of those who are opposed to this regarding the nature of our action. I've read every comment that has been submitted. I've read a lot of the online comments as well. I've responded to some of those as I thought appropriate to correct misunderstandings. But just to review briefly the procedural steps that got us to where we are tonight. This matter initially was proposed in a formal application that was reviewed by Kevin and his staff. Our administrative staff gave it a thorough review, referred it to council for consideration. Council referred it on to our planning commission for their evaluation and recommendation. Then following, subject to public notice and a public meeting, the planning commission considered the proposed special use. And again, this is, I just want to clarify, this is not a zoning change. This property is already zoned appropriately for the retail gun sales that Mr. Sabo has and Midwest Shooters have proposed. There is a requirement in our zoning code that gun ranges secure a special use permit from council, which gives council an opportunity to review the specifications for that operation. And it's that special use permit that we are discussing here, not the operation of a gun store per se. So the Planning Commission considered the special use application and unanimously recommended its approval to council, came back to council, and we scheduled the public hearing for December 21st, held the public hearing on December 21st. Following that, as in my capacity as chair of the zoning committee, I worked with our law director who stepped up and did superb work on this legislation, drafting legislation. And the important thing about the legislation is that we have proposed what legislation we will consider tonight, which we will hopefully be voting up or down on, is a modification of the Planning Commission proposal to include some significant additional operational conditions to ensure the safety of this gun range. And I'll try and I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will summarize them. The first requirement is that we have made it clear that the construction and operation of the center will be done in accordance with the representations made in the application, in the hearing before the Planning Commission, in the public hearing, and the public hearing that was held on December 21st. We've specifically included construction requirements, including that the shooting bays be self-contained, that there will be sound reduction installation technology included in the construction, that the shooting bays will be sealed to eliminate noise, and that they will install a specialized HVAC system complete with HEPA filters to ensure safe and clean environment. We also added operational limitations that they have to comply with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms rules and regulations regarding rental and sale of firearms, that they will have range officers on duty at all time, and that they will offer comprehensive training curriculum to educate new shooters, and again, that they will have that the shooting bays will remain sealed. Significantly, we have included limitations on the ammunition that will be able to be fired within the shooting range, which is designed to ensure the integrity of the structure and to make sure that the operation is safe. And then the final step that we added was we have included a requirement of an annual review by our zoning administrator to assure that the conditions of the special use permit are being observed and complied with. And we've made it clear that in the event that there are any violations of the conditions included in the special use, that the special use condition will terminate, and they will not be able to continue to operate. So the effect of these conditions is that council has, based on the comments we've received and discussions with the operators and others in our community, we have significantly increased the protections from those that were approved by the Planning Commission. To approve the Planning Commission recommendation, we need simply a majority of council, 4 votes. To approve the legislation which is before council tonight, we will need a supermajority, a minimum of 5 votes to impose these additional conditions. So, Mr. Mayor, my plan would be to introduce the ordinance. Do you want to have some additional discussion before we introduce the ordinance, or do you want to proceed? We do have an ordinance, and I think we do tend to have an up or down vote on the ordinance this evening.
Will only require one motion for approval.
Right.
And I can pause after the first and the second for further discussion. However, other members of council might like to speak before we begin that process. So other members of council, Mr. Fry or others, anyone that would like to speak, this is the appropriate time.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple things that I would appreciate having additional feedback on. I know that Mr. Sabo is on the line, and if it's appropriate, I would like him to have the opportunity to respond to the questions around lead, arsenic, and noise pollution. I feel like when I went down to observe the Midwest Shooting Center, I felt that I believe I heard that they would not be issues, but I think it would be helpful for me to have clarification on that from Mr. Sabo, if that would be appropriate.
Yes, I have no problem with that. Request of council, Mr. Sabo, there you're unmuted. We cannot see you, but I suppose we can hear you.
Is that better?
Yeah.
There we go. You're over there. Okay.
Great. Can you guys unmute Jeff Swinford as well, my business partner? He's actually going to he's our lead specialist.
We can see both of you. He's still muted. There we go. Okay.
Can you guys hear me okay? See me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you guys, and thank you for the question, Mary. So regarding lead and arsenic, our range does a few things that's unique compared to existing indoor ranges that you may find out in the industry. So Typically, indoor ranges are made using an internal ballistic structure made entirely of steel. This is the old way of doing things, and this is how you will find 99% of the ranges that are out there. These kinds of ranges are loud. They don't have any natural noise abating properties. In fact, the steel actually amplifies that sound, and they are dirty. The way these ranges work, when a projectile is fired, the projectile is allowed to impact the steel bullet trap area. When that happens, it allows the projectile to powderize into the air within that self-contained shooting unit, which the HVAC system then has to deal with. Now, what our range does that's different is we use a rubber trap. So this is the most modern technology that's available within the industry. And the way this works is we have a self-contained unit that is the shooting module. It's actually integral in and of itself inside of our building where the shooting activity takes place. It's made of concrete blocks, poured concrete within. And on top of that, we do have the bulletproof ballistic steel. But on top of that, we adhere a thick rubber membrane, and the bullet trap itself is made of granulated rubber. So what these rubber ranges do, in addition to just having natural noise abating properties because it's rubber instead of steel, they're designed to encapsulate 100% of the projectile when it is fired. So there is no fragmenting, there is no powderizing. That lead is not allowed to enter the atmosphere within our shooting module. So it significantly reduces the amount of lead that our system has to deal with. Now, in addition to the lead that leaves in the form of a projectile, which is 99.95% of the lead related to the shooting activity, there is a trace amount of lead that leaves the end of a firearm that is used in the manufacture of modern ammunition and the primers that are used to ignite the propellant. The way that we manage this lead is through this specialized HVAC system. So the way it works, the internal construction, the shooting module itself, the self-contained unit, has a separate HVAC system from the rest of the facility, specifically designed to deal with this lead. There is a constant laminar flow of air moving away from the firing line, constantly circulating. And what that does is that moves all of the air continuously downrange away from the firing line, and it removes that lead. And if there is arsenic, and I'll touch on that here in a second, all of those chemicals, anything leaving the muzzle of a firearm downrange away from the shooters, and it circulates it through our filtration system. And then from the filtration system, mixes with outside air. We do not let any contaminated air leave the facility ever. We're just bringing fresh air back into the facility. So that's how we manage that. And actually that system exchanges 100% of the air inside of the shooting module every 60 seconds. Clean air, fresh air, constantly moving away from the shooter's faces, the firing line. Now, as it relates to arsenic, as part of a standard manufacturing process, some ammunition manufacturers, not all, use arsenic as part of the mixture that hardens the lead. Very trace amounts, and again, because our range is designed to entirely encapsulate those projectiles, we're not allowing that chemical to enter the air whatsoever. The projectile is encapsulated in its entirety in our bullet trap downrange, that rubber trap. Any chemicals or anything that would pollute the atmosphere within that shooting module gets swept downrange because of the diffuser we have in place and that specialized HVAC system that we have, which is an extraordinary expense to us and is something we do to maintain our status as a 5-star facility within the indoor shooting sports industry. So that's how we manage the lead. That's how we manage the arsenic, if there is any. Again, it's a very trace amount. And really, when you hear the concerns about arsenic, you're hearing those stem from the outdoor range world, where there isn't a burden on the operator to manage the downrange projectiles. Whatever is in that projectile is entering the earth, and that's where it is. We are held to a much higher standard because we operate in an indoor shooting facility. And in fact, when it comes to managing that lead, we actually have to maintain a cradle to grave policy per the EPA. So we are responsible for all lead that enters our facility and exits our facility. So when we mine our bullet trap to pull those projectiles out, again, those completely 100% intact projectiles, we pull all that granulate material out. We pull the lead out. We contract with a EPA contractor, a lead disposal company. They take that lead off site and they dispose of it properly at their facility, and we receive a certificate that lead has been disposed of properly. The same thing with our HVAC filtration system. When those filters are ready to be exchanged, we contract with an EPA contractor to come and dispose of that material properly, and we receive a certificate of disposal for that material as well. So hopefully that answers those two questions as it relates to knowing. Yeah, and again, because we are a rubber trap, it has the natural noise abating properties.
We appreciate your answer.
Thank you. Yeah.
I
do think that that's one of the most frequent questions that I receive. So I hope that was helpful to our listeners.
Other questions
and it was helpful to me.
From members of City Council?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add a few words.
Ms. Dow?
I'd like to share with Council that I'm uncomfortable putting my name behind an exception that would condone the frequent shooting of guns within the 15-minute walkable neighborhood of a school. It just doesn't align with my hopes and visions for Sylvania. So I just want to let you know that I will be voting against SUP-1-2020.
Thank you. Other comments from members of City Council? Hearing none, Mr. Hanem, would you like to introduce your legislation?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. If we're ready for a new process, I would like to introduce by title only Ordinance number 7-2021, granting a special use permit to allow the operation of a gun club at 7600 West Sylvania Avenue, Sylvania, Ohio, on the application of David A. Sabo on behalf of Midwest Shooting Center, modifying the recommendation of the Planning Commission and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Yes, second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance number 7, 2021 as an emergency measure. I need the clerk to call the motion, as I know that it will not be a unanimous vote. Mrs. Booker.
Mrs. Cappellini,
Yes.
Mr. Fry,
Yes.
Mr. Hanem,
Yes.
Mr. McCann,
Yes.
Mr. Richardson,
Yes.
Ms. Stowe, Mrs. Westfall.
Yes.
The vote is 6-1, meaning the motion carries and ordinance number 7, 2021 is enacted as an emergency measure. All right. With that, we'll move on to the next item in the agenda, and we have a number of issues referring to street improvements. We're at agenda item number 7. The first one is for Monroe Street and Arun Road improvements. Mr. Aller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When the original project application was put together for the Federal Highway Administrative Funds, there was an estimate of $279,694 that would be needed to purchase additional right-of-way. As we got into the design of the project, more right-of-way was needed than was originally anticipated, and as well, the initial value that was used for that right-of-way was lower than what the final fair market value estimates came out to be. So the current estimate for right-of-way acquisition stands at $549,694. Any funds above the federal cap of $150,750 is the city's responsibility. And so therefore we need approval for an additional $270,000 to be used for right-of-way acquisition. If any of those funds aren't used for right-of-way acquisition, they can be used for construction funds. I'll also let you know that even though It's not official. It won't be official until next Thursday. As you know, we did submit this project for OPWC funding. We were successful. From a scoring standpoint, we won't get official notice until next Thursday. But that grant will cover a large portion of this additional funding. So we do recommend approval of the additional funds and ask for your action this evening.
And to clarify, these additional funds will be paid to Sylvania property owners for the purchase of right-of-way. So it'll be going to Toledo Memorial Park or Kroger, which is a big corporation, but it's for their property here in Sylvania, or the property at the southwest corner of the intersection, which is the oil change firm.
Correct.
All right. Any questions from members of City Council concerning proposed Ordinance 1, 2021? With that, I go to Mrs. Westfall as the acting streets chairman to read Ordinance 1, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce by title only Ordinance number 1-2021, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into an agreement to the real estate agreement number 34971 between the State of Ohio Department of Transportation and the City of Sylvania for right-of-way acquisition relative to the Monroe Street and Haroon Road Improvement Project, appropriating additional funds for the right-of-way acquisition costs in the amount of $270,000. I move passage of ordinance number 1-2021 as an emergency measure.
Second.
There's second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance number 1, 2021 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries and ordinance 1, 2021 is enacted as an emergency measure. Moving on to agenda item number 8. This is for Cushman Road improvements. This has been on the agenda for getting construction easements quite a while. We now bring a bid for award to you. Mr. Aller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we took bids on December 1st last year and received 11 bids for the project. The lowest bid was submitted by Sylvania Trucking Excavating out of Dundee, Michigan. Their low bid was $891,839.44, which was approximately 5% under the engineer's estimate. We do have experience with Sylvania. I think this will be the third project in my time with the city that they've done for the city. They're a good contractor, do good work, and we should get a good project out of it. We are splitting. There are various funds that we're using for this project. We'll use approximately $650,000 out of the water fund, $215,000 out of the capital fund, and then approximately $25,000 out of our storm ditch and storm assessment that we have every year. We do recommend approval in moving forward with the project.
Mr. Allen, lists you had a large bidders list. A lot of interest in the project. The bid came in, I don't know, it looks maybe 7 or 8% under budget. You're comfortable with Sylvan's ability to complete the project at that amount?
Yes, yeah. Their bid is about 5% under the bid, and we had 4 contractors within 10% of each other. And
that's very tight bidding. That means the project is likely doable for that amount.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, a question for Kevin. What's the execution time frame on this, Kevin, presuming it's approved?
They may have trucks out there tomorrow. They are ready to get going. Yeah.
Okay. How long for completion?
We have not gotten their project schedule. I believe that we gave 4 months for completion, but we have not gotten their project schedule yet. At least I haven't. Joe may have it. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. In the past, when we've had all the easements to approve, I have included some other members of council to help read these. And this one, I'd like to have Mr. McCann present. This project includes more than just street improvements. He's chairman of utilities. So Mr. McCann, would you introduce Ordinance 2, 2021?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Getting my papers in order. Yes, I'd like to introduce by title only Ordinance number 2-2021. Accepting the bid of Sylvania Trucking and
Yes.
I'm sorry, should I proceed?
I'm sorry, I was distracted. You presented it. Was there a second?
No, I didn't get through the whole yet.
I'm sorry if I was the interruption. Let's go again.
Again, like to introduced by title only, ordinance number 2-2021, accepting the bid of Sylvania Trucking and Excavating and awarding the contract for the Cushman Road Improvement Project to same, authorizing the expenditure for the improvements in the amount of $891,839.44, appropriating funds therefore, and declaring an emergency.
Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded for passage of Ordinance 2, 2021 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries and Ordinance 2, 2021 is approved. Moving on to agenda item 9. This is for improvements to the Silica Drive Bridge. They're near Northview High School. Mr. Aller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council has previously authorized us to move forward and receiving letters of interest and moving forward with ranking and selecting a consulting firm. We selected DGL Consulting Engineers as that firm and entered into negotiations with them for a design fee. This is coming to council for approval to execute that design contract in the amount of $260,378. This does include 2 if authorized tasks, one of those being if we have an emergency, the pedestrian bridge that's in that area is in poor shape. And we continue to keep eye on that. We inspect that about every 6 months. And if for some reason it deteriorates to the point that we think it should be closed, they will, one of the tasks would be to execute that closure plan. And then the second part is a aesthetics report for some public involvement in that bridge appearance. And we would anticipate utilizing that task as well. So we are recommend approval for the full amount of their proposal, $260,378. This project is a local an LPA project. ODOT has requested that we perform this, and we will do so. This amount is in the capital improvement budget, and we would anticipate at the time that this goes to construction that we would also apply for OPWC funding that would reduce our costs even further. So we ask for approval.
That's a very good look. From members of City Council. We do have proposed ordinance number 3, 2021 to hire the professional engineer. Mr. Richardson, you're part of the street committee as well. Would you read this one for us?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce by title only ordinance number 3-2021, accepting the proposal of DGL Consulting Engineers, LLC to provide professional engineering services for the Silica Drive Bridge Replacement Project, appropriating funds therefore in the amount of $260,378 and declaring an emergency.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for passage of Ordinance 3, 2021 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and ordinance 3, 2021 is approved.
Mr. Mayor, so we don't have to waive off the second and third readings. Is that ended?
No.
Maybe that's a question for Leslie, sorry.
Well, I think I can answer it.
Okay.
The charter requires passage for one reading passage. You must have 5 affirmative votes. If only 4 members of council voted for it, it would automatically not pass tonight and come back for a second and or third passage.
Got it. Just clarifying, I'm going to get used to these new rules, but thank you.
Right. We don't have to waive the second and third reading, but you still need 5 to vote council. One council meeting.
Council.
Got it.
Council.
Moving on to agenda item 10. On the second page of our agenda, we have Monroe Street Bridge Rehabilitation. This is the one over.
Wonder if he's going to hit me up for this one again.
Mr. Aller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this project is in the location the mayor indicated, right there by Somo. This project is going to be a rehabilitation project that'll be done by hydrodemolition and then replacing it with a concrete overlay. They'll come in with a high pressure hydro machine and basically strip off the top 3 inches of concrete that are on the bridge, do some full depth slab repair that are needed in a couple spots, and then replace all of the curbing, sidewalk, bridge railing, and guardrail. Everything, all of that will be new with this project. We do have the construction schedule for late spring or early summer, beginning right about June 1st. And it will be done in conjunction with some of the finishing construction for the Somo development, and will be done at the same time. When this project is being completed, Monroe Street will be closed for 2 weeks during this construction, and then it will be single lane in each direction for probably another 2 weeks. So it will impact traffic on Monroe Street for about a month. This contract that we're proposing is for the construction engineering services while that project is going on. With the other ODOT projects that we have going are concerned, we want to make sure that we have eyes on the concrete and eyes on the rebar and things like that. And so we would prefer that we bring a consultant in to do this work. This contract is proposed to be with Fishbeck, who you may recall did our water study and recently acquired Northwest Consultants, who did the design work on this project. So we're dealing with 2 firms that we're familiar with. Their proposal to perform this work is in the amount of $13,168. These costs were included in the capital improvement budget, and we would request approval.
And to just clarify, this project is being done at the same time as the open cut of Monroe to cross Monroe Street with a larger water line to provide fire protection services in the Somo development.
Correct.
You have combined those two closures of Monroe Street into one closure, but that will be a very difficult time period for 2 weeks of closure and 2 more weeks of single lane in each direction. I know that you and your department are already working on postings for detours. The first few days of detours are always the worst until people figure out they need to find another path.
Yes.
That is a very important place for people to get to US 23 and to get back home. All right. We do have provided in the council package proposed ordinance 4, 2021. Mr. Hainham, you are also a member of the Streets Committee. Would you be willing to read this one?
If I can unmute, yes. Okay. I would, I'm still going to use my script. I'd like to introduce by title only Ordinance number 4-2021, accepting the proposal of Fishbeck to provide construction engineering services for the Monroe Street Bridge over 10 Mile Creek Rehabilitation Project, appropriating funds therefore in the amount of $13,168 and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance number 4, 2021 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries, and ordinance 4, 2021 is enacted as an emergency measure. We are now up to agenda item 11, which has to do with the hybrid beacon project, or Hawk Light, on Haroon Road at the River Trail Crossing. Mr. Aller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this is a project that is the result of a traffic study that we did on Haroon Road in early 2019. We do propose installing a pedestrian hybrid beacon or a hawk signal, as they were sometimes referred to, on Haroon Road at the River Trail Crossing. This will enable somebody, if a biker or walker is on the trail and wishes to cross Haroon Road, they'll be able to push a button. It'll go through a series of signals and ultimately become solid red, which is to stop the oncoming traffic and allow the individual that's on the trail to make that crossing. We have been working with DGL on the traffic study and requested a proposal from them to perform the design of that project. Their proposal is to do that work for $11,500. DGL is a good firm. Obviously, we recommended them earlier on a much larger project, and we would recommend approval. I would like to point out in the ordinance that it is spelled out in like the third whereas. We did group this project with the Monroe Haroon safety project that we just added the money for the right-of-way acquisition. We grouped those together for the OPWC application, giving us a better chance to score. That is the one that we were successful as far as scoring goes. So we have about close to a $2.8 million project, and the city's contribution towards that will be $442,200, or about 16%. The rest of that project will be covered through
Beacon Light. That's all of them.
That's all of it. Yeah, the entire project.
The Light is estimated at $155,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, the hybrid beacon is only $155,000. But in grouping those, it enabled us to leverage the ODOT funds and get more funding for the total project. So we would recommend approval of DGL.
Mrs. Cappellini, it looks like you're being invaded by aliens.
Small orange alien, yes.
Okay. Questions for the service director concerning Ordinance 5, 2021? Mrs. Westfall, you said this is
Mr. Mayor, just a brief comment. I just wanted to emphasize and point out that with the anticipated funding grant that we're down below 16% of the total project, and wanted to congratulate Kevin. I've said it before, you've said it before as well, Mr. Mayor, that the streets continue to do a great job in securing incremental funding from other sources for projects like this. So it's a nice get.
We are in competition with all the other political subdivisions, and Mr. Aller is and study and anticipating what can be funded and what can't be funded. And fund planning is working out very well right now. We hope that that can continue, but you're on a very good streak, Mr. Aller. We recognize that. Mrs. Westfall, you had indicated this project had resulted in inquiries to you. Would you be willing to read Ordinance 5, 2021?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce by title only Ordinance number 5-2021, accepting the proposal of DGL Consulting Engineers LLC to provide engineering services for the Haroon Road Pedestrian Hybrid Beacon Project, appropriating funds therefore in an amount not to exceed $11,500. I move passage of ordinance number 5-2021 as an emergency measure.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that ordinance number 5, 2021 be approved for passage as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and ordinance 5, 2021 is enacted as an emergency measure. Moving on to agenda item 12 on our agenda. This is annual legislation to enter into an agreement between the City of Sylvania and the Board of Lucas County Commissioners for Suburban Court Services. Mrs. Brining, would you give us an update on this first?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Hi. This, as the mayor said, this is annual legislation that provides funding for the victims advocate in our municipal court. Erica does a great job at helping guide victims of all crime serviced by our court jurisdiction, not just city residents. And as you can see, the funding our funding requirement has remained steady at $25,000 for the past 10 years or so at least, and I would recommend its approval. She does a great job at helping explain the court process to all of the victims.
Thank you. Apparently my microphone does not turn off when I push mute. That's probably how I interrupted Mr. McCann earlier. My microphone did not turn off. My apologies for that. What's going on? All right, we do have ordinance 6, 2021 to enter into this agreement. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce by title only ordinance number 6-2021, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into an agreement on behalf of the City of Sylvania between the City of Sylvania and the Board of Lucas County Commissioners for the Suburban Court Services Program, agreeing to participate in funding a portion of the local share for suburban court services, appropriating $25,000 therefore, and declaring an emergency.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance 6, 2021 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries and ordinance 6, 2021 is enacted as an emergency measure. Agenda item 13 is proposed resolution 1, 2021. Again, this is something we do annually to meet the state's requirement for our education of open meeting laws and public records law requirements. State law does allow the clerk to attend these and share the information with us. This morning, I forwarded our clerk of council a newsletter from TMACOG, which scheduled their session electronically as well in April, but she does not need to use that one there. I'm sure there's other electronic venues available for her, but we need to designate her as our representative to receive that training. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce by title only resolution number 1-2021. A resolution designating the clerk of council as the mayor and city council's designee to attend training programs and seminars about public records law as required by Ohio Revised Code section 109.43 and declaring an emergency.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for passage of resolution number 1, 2021 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries and resolution number 1, 2021 is enacted as an emergency measure. We are up to agenda item 14, committee reports. Mr. Hanem, you did have a zoning and annexation committee meeting held this evening at 6:30. Would you like to make a report of that meeting?
Yeah, I'd like to do that. We had two issues that we addressed tonight. First was related to parking requirements, and the second one was related to our land use in the first two blocks of our downtown on Main Street. And we discussed whether we should limit the first floor usage of that to retail restaurant type operations. Let me just talk briefly about the parking. The discussion on the parking was to first include in our existing zoning code a requirement to include bike parking facilities as part of and to include that in the plan review so that all of our future city developments include some capacity for bike parking. And then we also discussed modifying our current zoning code to allow the current zoning code specifies a minimum number of parking spots, and we want to change the code to allow developers to include in their site plan a rationale for using fewer parking spots, and also allowing any issues that develop between our administrative staff and a proposed developer to be heard before the planning commission, who obviously will act on a recommendation from administration, but will give people an opportunity to be heard there. On that item, we agreed that going forward, the way to advance this would be to involve the law director and get her assistance in drafting some legislation for council to consider. And the chair of zoning will take second chair, but we'll be happy to help the law director with that effort. And then on the second issue, we decided we needed additional information from a variety of sources. Ms. Capolini pointed out that this proposal was included in a prior downtown plan that was prepared by Pogemeyer that was not implemented. There was general interest in pursuing it further. We determined that the next best step might be to have a forum to do some information gathering with the owners of the downtown properties that would be affected, and the current DSA members, and we agreed we would enlist the assistance of Mr. Fry and Mr. Stanford in putting that together, and we'll do that and reconvene a zoning committee meeting somewhere down the road to further discuss implementing the Pogemeyer change. Appreciate Katie forwarding that recommendation to us for consideration. And that zoning committee meeting lasted approximately 57 minutes, I think. and we thereby adjourned. And if any members of committee have of the committee or other, I think everyone was in attendance. If you want to add anything, please feel free to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Hanem. Are there any other committee reports to be made at this time? Or committee referrals? Hearing none, we'll move on to added agenda item 16. Mr. Sanford requested an opportunity to bring you up to date on Wednesday's meeting. Mr. Sanford is in council chambers. He still needs to be unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder, January 6th, Wednesday afternoon at 3:30, we'll be meeting virtually with Michelle Johnson. I will get that information out to everybody tomorrow. I held up the updated plan that she had sent us, and I think you should all have that. I'm going to resend it. Please take a look at it. We will go over she's taken the information from the previous meetings and updated what she has shown us in the past, and we'll also have a discussion of how a TIF could possibly work in our downtown. So I'm expecting about at least an hour and 15 minutes for that meeting. And I'll get you the information of how to get into the meeting probably tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanford. If there's no other additional items, we do have an executive session to go to as agenda item 17. I need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Fry,
Yes.
Mr. Hanem,
Yes.
Mr. McCann,
Yes.
Mr. Richardson,
Yes.
Ms. Stowe,
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall,
Yes.
Mrs. Capolini.
Yes.
The vote is 7-0 to return to open session. I need Chuck to reopen the meeting on YouTube so that I can report out, and then we'll adjourn our council meeting.
We're good. We're good, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'm told that we're good. City Council has returned from its executive session to discuss pending litigation. Executive session. It was an update for members of City Council. There are no additional items on the agenda as a result of the executive session. Is there a motion to adjourn our City Council meeting?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn our City Council meeting. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries and this council stands adjourned until its next regularly scheduled meeting 2 weeks from tomorrow night on Tuesday, January 19th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Thank you all for attending this evening.